Welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. I'm your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking that subscribe button below. Super excited for this episode. Joining me is Lindsay. Please go ahead and give yourself an introduction.
Yeah. Hey, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's nice to meet you in person, and well, kind of in person.
Yeah.
My name is Lindsay Stamp, and I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am a product manager at an insurance company, and I, on the side, invest in real estate and in the stock market. Recently, started building my X account on Twitter, and have just had the chance to talk about my experience and meet a bunch of cool people.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. We were just talking about some of the other podcasts you've been on and are going to be on soon. So, for right off the top, shout out to Tom, Savings Captain. We love you, Tom. We were just talking about you before we hit record. So, uh, first, I guess question: what is a product manager at an insurance company?
Yeah, so I work in the auto insurance sector, specifically related to total loss and salvage. So when vehicles are totaled in an auto accident, I don't handle claims, but I work on the back end, the operations, behind the scenes. So I work on the products that total loss and salvage reps use in order to handle claims. I create and disseminate workflows. I work with our engineers and our system folks to create, system enhancements and new way of doing things on our platforms.
Okay, interesting. A whole lot of words that I didn't really understand, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of insurance jargon. I won't go too much into it, but mostly tech back end kind of system updates that I work on.
Okay, interesting. And then, so you also mentioned, I guess, two main types of investing: real estate, so physical real estate investing, and then stock market investing. Which one did you get into first? Which one are you leaning towards investing more in? What do you see your
Yeah.
future path looking like?
Yeah, so I started investing in the stock market in 2015. That's whenever I got a job and I started putting money into my 401k and I started a Roth IRA. And I did that for several years before I got into real estate. So I bought my first property in 2018. It was a primary home that I went on to sell in 2020, and then started investing in rental properties in 2020. Purchased one that year, one in 2021, one in 2022, and then one this year. So I would say my investing portfolio is about two-thirds real estate, one-third stocks. And I intend to kind of keep it a good split moving forward. So I still want to do both. I still enjoy both,
Right.
and hoping to keep doing that.
So am I counting that correctly? You have three rental doors plus a primary residence?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and then obviously you're young, so you have plenty of time to just keep building. And do you see yourself becoming like Lauren at Adulting is Easy, or Tom the Frugal Gay with like 20? Well, I'm not sure how many Lauren has, but Tom is up to, I think, 23 or 24 doors. Do you see yourself going down a path like that?
Um, well, shout out to them. I follow both of them on social media, and they're both great. They provide really, really good content that I think is super educational. So shout out to both of them if they ever see this. Um,
I'll make
but
sure they do. They've both been on the Passive Income podcast, and I've been
awesome.
on Lauren's Adulting is Easy podcast as well. So
Oh, that's so cool. But to answer your question, I'm not exactly sure. I think at the beginning, when I started investing in real estate, I did intend for that to be the case, to buy a property a year for the next, my mindset was if I could buy one every year for the next 10, 15 years, then by the time I'm mid 40s, mid to mid 50s, all the properties will be mostly paid off and cash flowing nicely. But as I've purchased properties and as I've gone through this experience, I'm not as interested as the number of doors as I am having a few solid, great properties that I can eventually pay down or pay off and make really nice cash flow from.
quality over quantity, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, and it's for me, you know, I totally respect people that have tons of properties, people that have 10, 20, 50. I think that's amazing. And I think there's tons of different strategies with real estate. I just, I personally realized as I've gotten older, like as I've grown through this process, that I don't love having tons of debt. I'm not somebody that wants to have millions of dollars of real estate debt hanging over my head. And so for me, I think being able to have some great properties that, like I said, I can pay off or significantly pay down, and then have a really nice stock portfolio as well, that seems like a better balance for me from a risk perspective.
Right, right, right. And I just, I guess, just for perspective, are all of these properties in like the Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania area?
Yeah, they're all in Pennsylvania. Two are in Pittsburgh, and then two are in Erie. Erie's like 2 hours north of Pittsburgh, and that's actually my hometown where I'm from. But I've been living in Pittsburgh for some time.
Yeah. Well, shout out to the Erie Otters on that one.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. I used to go to games all the time whenever I was a kid.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Okay, cool, cool. I guess I'm also kind of curious then, just the price of real estate in Pittsburgh and Erie, Pennsylvania. Like, I'm guessing it's a lot less expensive than, well, obviously it's got to be way less expensive than places like New York, LA, Miami.
For
But
sure.
it's also probably got to be more expensive than some other places in the US or Canada or wherever, right?
Yeah, that's actually the reason I, started investing in Pennsylvania, because when I bought my first investment property in 2020, I was actually living in Denver, Colorado, and I loved living there. But it came time where we had the money saved, we had the knowledge, to jump into investing in real estate, but it came down to, where are we going to start investing? Are we going to try to buy a place here, or start our portfolio in Pennsylvania, where we're from? And real estate in Denver is super expensive. So when we started shopping around, it was like, all right, we can get like a 2 bed, 1 bath, or a 3 bed, 1 bath, 900 square feet, or like 1,000 square feet home for like 500,000, 600,000 at the time. Or we can buy a place in Pennsylvania for 100,000 or 150,000 or 200,000, is a lot more reasonable. And so, because we were so inexperienced and didn't know what we didn't know, we didn't want to start out in Denver. And I'm really glad that we took that path, because we did make mistakes, So I'm glad that those mistakes were a lot smaller dollars than, what they probably would have been had we started out west.
Right, right. And just for clarification, when you say we, you're talking about you and,
Yes, my wife, Katie.
okay, perfect, awesome.
Yep.
That's a very interesting background, very interesting start to your real estate investing journey. I think personally, I don't really know a lot about real estate investing other than this is my house that well, I own half of it, the bank owns the other half of it, but um, well, it's pretty much a 50-50 split at this point. And
That's actually not bad.
well, at my age, it should be a little bit better, but it's okay. I'm dealing with it. But yeah, I don't. I've never gone down the rental property path and that. But and again, hats off to people like yourself, people like Tom and Lauren who are doing it and doing it successfully. And I mean, Tom,
Yeah.
you look at those before and after pictures when he gets a house that is just destroyed, and the hoarder houses and the crack houses and the things that he's just brought back to life. Those are
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. He's just doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think something that he says on there a lot is that he has a passion for taking things that are ugly and making them beautiful, or taking things that are run down and making them beautiful. And I feel the exact same way, because the first property that we purchased was a single family home that didn't really need any work. It needed like $1,500 in repairs, very minor. But the second place that we purchased was a full gut, 100%. So new electric, plumbing, all new drywall, walls, ceilings, everything, roof,
Yep. Paint,
um,
everything, the
everything.
doorknobs, everything. Yep.
Oh yeah, all doors, doorknobs, brand new kitchen, bathroom, everything. And although it was a ton of work and we made mistakes and it was cost more than we thought it was going to and it took
Yep.
longer than we thought it was going to,
Yep. All
when
sounds right.
yeah, yeah, when we got to the end and we saw the finished product of the before and after and the how different it looked and how nice it was all worth it. And at
And the
that point,
pride, right? The pride of looking at those before and after pictures and saying, "We did this."
exactly right. And a lot of it, we did hire out for, some of it, of course. But a lot of it we did ourselves because we were trying to save money and trying to learn and do things like it was the first time we had tiled a shower. It was the first time we had tiled a floor. It was the first time we hung cabinets and did backsplash and like all those things. And now whenever we look at it, it's like, I can't believe that we really did this. So like I really relate to him in a lot of ways. They're like saying, taking something ugly and making it beautiful is like
Yep.
there's just something about that that's so much fun.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. That is really cool story and beginning, like you said, to your real estate investing, and I think that's also a great strategy too of the quality over quantity. If you get great properties in great areas, you know what they've always said in real estate, right? Location, location, location. So I'm sure even in places like Pittsburgh, there's well, I've never been to Pittsburgh, but I can guarantee you there's expensive areas of the city and less expensive areas of the city, right? So
For
location,
sure.
location, location, and so
For sure.
awesome. Let's maybe dive into the other side of your portfolio a little bit, then the stock investing. I think
Yeah.
you said you started the stock investing around 2015, is that correct?
Yeah, I started my 401k investing in 2015, and obviously, with the 401k, and then so basically this is how it played out. So I started working in 2015, and I had gone from being a poor college kid who didn't have much money at all, to having a job out of college that made more money than I ever really had or knew what to do with. And so I spent a lot of it, and I accrued some debt for myself. And then I also realized that I have extra money left over every month that I should probably be doing something smart with. And so at the time, I didn't know what to do, and I hired a financial advisor. So my financial advisor and I, got into my 401k, my match from my company, and then we also got into starting out a Roth IRA. And so my advisor at the time kind of managed the Roth IRA, and then she assisted in picking the funds in the 401k. So for the beginning of my stock investing career, I would say I didn't have any say in what I was buying. I just was, I knew $500 was coming out every month for the Roth, and I knew 5% of my pay was coming out for the 401k, and I just had it on autopilot and didn't think much of it. It wasn't until like a few years later when I realized like I need to do more, and 5% here and this 500 is not going to get me where it is that I want to go, and I need to up this, and I probably should be putting money into a brokerage and doing other things. So for the beginning of my investing career, it was pretty hands off.
Right. Interesting. So I, I hear some interesting things there. Like, um, right away, it sounded like maybe out of college, you said you accrued some debt, so a little bit of lifestyle creep right away, where it's like, oh, I've got some money now, I'm going to spend it, and then you all of a
Yes.
sudden end up spending more than you had, which
Yes.
we've all done that, especially at that age, at a college in your early 20s or mid 20s, and it's very, very easy to do. It's a lot easier to make money go away than it is to bring it in, right? I think we can all agree on that.
100%. It was one of those things where like, I wanted a new car, so I went out and I bought a Jeep Wrangler that I really couldn't afford, and then I mentioned how I bought my first house in 2018, which was a primary residence. So I had saved up enough from my job, to put a down payment. And, I knew that I wanted to own real estate, and I had purchased that house when I was 24 years old. So I was pretty young at the time whenever I bought my first house. And so although like I did a few good things as far as like saving up enough for a down payment, finding a good home in Dallas, Texas, that was in a great market. I did some bad things too. Like right after I closed on the house, I wanted to furnish it. So I couldn't afford to furnish it because I just put all my money for a down payment. So I went and bought $10,000 worth of furniture and I put it on a credit card.
Ooh,
Just like
ouch.
dumb, yeah, just dumb stuff like that that I did that at the time, looking back, I can't believe I did it. But at the same time, I learned so many valuable lessons through making mistakes and then fixing those mistakes that I know I'll never do it again.
Right. I bet it was really nice furniture. And honestly, you buy a house, you do have to put a bed and a couch and a couple tables and chairs in it. So
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like in hindsight, I probably should have just like gone at the speed of cash, like saved up some money and bought a living room set and saved up some more and bought like a
yeah,
spare bedroom set. But I didn't, I just went to IKEA or Ashley Furniture Store or wherever and was like, I like that. That's beautiful. Let's
yeah.
have it. Just being young and not really thinking things through totally.
And not going to the secondhand stores to find some of that stuff that really could have gotten you by in those times. But again, no discredit to you. You bought a house at
Yeah.
24, so that's amazing in itself. But I do see that where all of a sudden, oh, I've just spent 10 grand on furniture in the house.
Exactly. And I'm like, I mean, even, I would never justify any of it. It was the wrong thing to do, obviously, but, then I put it on a no interest credit card that was 0% interest for like 18 months or 16 months or something like that. And so, I'm like, well, I have 16 months to pay this off. And so then I deferred it, like made a few payments. And then, obviously I'm like 6 months away from the deadline and I still owe $10,000. And I'm like, okay, I need to pay over 1,000 a month if I'm going to pay this off in time. And I didn't have 1,000 a month in discretionary income,
Right.
so just those types of things that I look back and laugh now and I'm just like, wow, you
Live
could
and
have
learn,
done
right?
better,
That's the
but
saying, live and learn.
exactly. It all got me to where I am today.
That's good. That's good stuff. So the first few years, hands off, just basically doing what your financial advisor is advising you to do, what they're being paid for. Where do you somewhere along the line there, you obviously said to yourself, I'm going to get a little more hands on. Um, I guess maybe talk about the decision of wanting to be more hands on, and then sort of the path that led you to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So, I was at the point where, I was investing in my 401k, my Roth IRA, and I didn't really have anything else going on. And I knew that I wanted to get into real estate investing and I knew I wanted to kind of beef up my stock portfolio. And so, this was around, I don't even remember the exact time frame, but it was around 2020, like before we bought our first property, that we really sat down and we were like, let's let's add up our debt. Like if we want to get serious about investing, like we have to pay off our debt. And, I'm not the type that's like, you have to pay off every single bit of debt you have before you can invest. Obviously, I'm not that way, or I probably wouldn't have been investing in my 401k and Roth the whole time I had this debt.
Right.
But I was thinking, like, if I'm not sending all of my paychecks to debt every month, imagine how much I could invest with it. So I really, at that time, we sat down and we wrote out everything. And, come to find out we had almost $100,000 in consumer debt or a little bit more. And that's whenever we really like made the plan to really get aggressive with paying it off. So when we made the decision to pay it off, we had a brokerage account that had like $7,500 in it or like 10,000. And so we decided, and it was just an index fund and mutual funds and or ETFs and index funds. And so we had decided like we're going to cash this out, we're going to send it towards the debt. We sold pretty much everything. So at that point, we sold the furniture, we sold the Jeep, we got a Honda, we sold a bunch of clothes. I had a jet ski that I sold. Like I just sold everything and just pretty much went like all out on paying off debt. Got a second job, started bartending, started driving for DoorDash, just trying to make more money. And pretty much every dollar that we made over our bills, we would just send towards debt. And we did the Dave Ramsey debt snowball method. We just started with the smallest one and just paid them off until they were paid off. And then when that was done, then we were able to start investing aggressively. So then we didn't have debt and started, upped our 401ks a little bit, kept the Roth IRAs going, and now at like as of right now, we're just making weekly contributions to the brokerage account,
Wow, that's
buying
amazing.
mostly Vanguard index or yeah Vanguard ETFs and some dividends.
Awesome. I definitely want to jump into the dividends, but before we get there, you said something where, like, it sounds like you and your wife, you sat down and you actually wrote down the amount of debt you had, and then that's when the light that to me that sounds like that was the light bulb moment when you wrote it down and you saw it on paper and you went,
Yeah.
look, wow, this is where we're at with the debt, and we need to do something about this. Am I somewhat correct in saying that that was
Oh, yeah, you're spot on. I mean, with the debt that we had, and at this point we were renting, we didn't own a primary residence, and like we hadn't purchased our property yet. We had a negative net worth, you know, so it was like we're not going to get anywhere with a negative net worth. Like because of all this debt that we're carrying, we have to make a plan and pay it
yeah.
off.
And well, and you were lucky. So some of those things that you bought in that lifestyle creep after college, actually, sure, say you bought a jet ski for 10 grand, you're not going to sell it for 10 grand, but say you were able to sell it for 6 or 7 grand or something. I'm just throwing out random numbers. At least you're able
Hmm.
to get some of that money back, plus the amount of fun you probably had with that jet ski. So you know what? At the end of the
Oh yeah.
day, not that bad, right?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you because the house that we bought in Dallas, it was right across the street from a lake. And so we were on the jet ski like all summer for 2 summers. We had a blast. You know, it was
Yeah, so
a
you got
great
your
time.
money's worth out of that jet ski, and then you
Yeah,
sold it, obviously for less than what you paid for it, but
yeah,
then you were able to use that money to go towards your debt. I get it 110%.
yeah, absolutely. And part of our like credit card debt was vacations. Like, it was not foreign for me to like. We went to the Pacific Northwest and we went and stayed like a week in Portland and a week in Seattle and we had an absolute ball. But we put most of it on a credit card, and so it's like those people
Yeah,
that most people make fun of on social media of like you're going to be paying for that trip next year. Like I did that back in the day. Like yeah,
yeah,
that was almost 5 years ago now. And so yeah, we had a lot of fun, but a lot of that fun was what the debt was. And now, like, we recently just went on a trip to Europe and we went for 2 weeks to Spain and Portugal. And there's nothing better than being able to pay off your trip up front before you even go. And when you come back, like, you don't have a looming debt from a vacation that you took months ago, you know? So it's just a complete 180 from the way I used to handle money to the way I handle money now.
yeah. Very different mindset. Very different mindset. Much better mindset. Um, I've always loved traveling too, and sure, traveling creates incredible memories, much more than just the random stuff that you buy, especially this time of year, Christmas, right? Like you just
Hmm.
overspending at its maximum at this time of year. But traveling, you create memories. You go to places, you see things that you've never seen before. The Pacific Northwest. I've never been to Oregon. I've been to places in Washington State because I used to live in BC, so just south of the border over to Washington State, and incredible, incredible, incredible. And yeah, so I definitely get that part of it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying too. That mindset of coming back from a trip and realizing I'm gonna be paying for that trip for the next year or more, as opposed to, "Hey, I just went to Europe for 2 weeks and I come home, I've had a great trip, and that's that. It's paid
Yeah.
for, I'm done."
Yeah, it's totally different. It's like night and day, but there's a lot of things, that I think play into the way I used to handle money. It was like part of that like feeling of I work really hard, I deserve it. I'm going to work every day and I want to take this trip, or that instant gratification of like I want this and I'm
Right.
going to find a way to buy it. But that's just not my mindset at all anymore. And I'm just grateful that I learned those lessons and figured that out young, because there's a lot of people that are 30s, 40s, 50s still living that way, still buying things they can't afford, still propping up a lifestyle that
Still
is
living
out of their
paycheck to paycheck, right? Like,
yeah, paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I think like every time those numbers come out from whoever unusual whales that like everybody that makes over 250,000 is living paycheck to paycheck, it's not surprising just because I know exactly how I used to live.
right. Yeah, and it's a little bit mind-boggling, but again, it's very easy to spend money. It's very, very, very easy to spend money.
Yes, it is. And like, for me personally, like I remember in like late 2018, I was at that time working a job that I hated. And I was on my way to work to a job that I hated, driving a Jeep I couldn't afford to go get a paycheck to spend that paycheck on things that I had purchased in the past. And at some point, like I just like asked myself, like, what are you doing? Like, how
That
long
weighs
are
on
you?
your mental health.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, how long are you going to keep, working a job you hate to pay off things that you couldn't afford buying in the first place? And, for me, it was like, okay, if I pay off this debt, then I don't have to work a job I hate. I don't have to, I can quit this job and go get a new job doing something I enjoy that maybe pays less, because I don't need to make as much money because I don't have any lenders coming to get my money every month. And so that was a huge motivator to pay it off because at the time I wanted to get out of my situation. And it just so happens that right around the time we paid off our debt, I ended up getting promoted at my company to a job that I now really, really enjoy and have absolutely no interest in leaving. But it is funny that that would happen, whenever I'm at the point where I can walk away.
Right.
So life is funny.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're actually still at the same company, where the job you hated compared to now the job that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I've only ever worked for one company actually. I started with them in 2015 out of college and I just hit my 8-year mark last month. So I've had different roles within the company while I've been there. I've had lots of different positions actually, but yeah, all at the same company.
Wow, interesting. Interesting.
Yes.
Now you also mentioned dividends. You mentioned Vanguard index funds. Is that kind of what your portfolio looks like? A lot of ETFs and index funds, a lot of dividend paying funds, and then just reinvest the dividends and get that snowball rolling. Is that sort of the investing strategy?
Yeah, pretty much. Last year, so about beginning of when was this? End of last year, I actually started working with a mentor, like somebody who, has been successful in investing in the stock market. And after working with them for a few months, I got rid of my financial advisor and just the one I had hired back in 2015 and just was like, hey, I'm going to, go forward with managing this stuff myself. And, I think I understand things enough to take the lead. And so at that point, I kind of changed over my Roth IRA from the things that she had me invested in, and I just invested in two Vanguard index funds, VT-SAX and VT-IAX. So it's pretty much broad um, index investing over the total stock market and the total international market. And
Right.
then, and in my brokerage account, I invest in VTI, VXUS, the SCHD, and thinking of starting a position in QQQM. So I'm thinking about that, but I feel like I get exposure to that with VTI, so I don't necessarily know if I'm going to go that route, but I am intrigued a little bit in dividend and dividend growth stocks, just because of the dividends obviously that are paid. But I just want to have like a good balance of being well diversified, um, in both growth and in dividend.
Yeah, that's great. And again, you're obviously still young. Um, and I say this to a lot of people in your age group. Of That's a great strategy of having sort of that balance between the growth stocks and the dividend stocks. So often you hear people say, "Oh, dividends are for old people or for like retired people that are just looking for passive income." And part of that is true. Sure, who doesn't want to have more income in their retirement? You don't have to depend on social security or whatever, right? Social insurance, and because obviously I, I'm guessing in the U.S. it's the same as Canada. If you're depending on just that, it's not nearly enough. That should just be the nice bonus to your retirement, um,
Yeah.
right? I'm
Yeah,
getting like
I would never rely on Social Security alone. I say that, and I have people in my family who get Social Security and they primarily live off of that, but I think that was a decent strategy for people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, because that was more of the strategy back then. You relied on pension or, Social Security, but people, my age, I don't rely on it, and I'm just kind of like, if it's there when I get there, great, and if it's not, that's okay too, because I'm going to make my own way. But yeah, it's always kind of like up for discussion. And I'm curious, is it similar in Canada?
Oh yeah, very similar. So I was just going to mention that sort of the same thing. Like I'm very confident that it'll still be there when I well my retirement's a lot closer than yours, um but the same thing. It should just be the bonus check that's coming in every month, not what you're relying on to to pay all of your bills monthly, right? Because it simply is not enough. Especially with inflation, there's no way that the monthly payments have kept up with inflation. So, yeah, you definitely need to have more income, whether that's having those growth stocks from 20 25 years ago and starting to sell them off at whatever percentage that they say to sell them off at uh, for your income, or just having the dividends for your passive income, or at that age, your act not just I guess it is still passive income, but your actual income, right? So yeah, very, very similar here in Canada.
Yeah, and so you are Dividend Dave, so you are taking the strategy of dividend stocks. So do you have any growth stocks, or are you mostly just dividends?
Um, I want to say every single stock in my portfolio is dividend, except I think I still have one that is a non-dividend payer, and it's a small cap uh, lithium company. It's sort of
Okay.
my idea of like, okay, well, all these EVs and electric cars coming out, that's a lot of lithium ion batteries going into these EVs. So I do have one small play in a small cap lithium operation.
Cool.
And it's fluctuated. I bought it low, and it's fluctuated to like I think I bought it at under $4 Canadian per share. It's went up to like 13 Canadian per share, and
Nice.
um, I sold a few off at that because well, not right at the top because obviously you can't time the market, but I sold off somewhere around 11 or 12 maybe. And then it's been all over the place since then. It's been back down to 3 or 4. It's been up, 6, 8, 7. I barely even look at it. I'm just and my position in it is small, so it's just kind of it's so small that it's like fun money. And like I said, those
Yeah.
when I sold off at near the top, that pretty much covered what I invested in it originally. So I'm
Oh,
playing with
nice.
pretty much playing with house money at this point on that one.
Yeah, just like a speculative play, just like the opportunity to make some if your thesis is right, and if it's not, that's okay too. And it was, free
Yeah,
money
like I said,
anyway.
I've probably already broken even on it, maybe made a little bit or very close
Yeah,
to that break even point. So you play with house money. If it goes to zero now, I'm it's not hurting me. If it skyrockets to $100 a share, then I look like a genius, right?
exactly. Yeah, I hope that's the case for you.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Once in my 50 years, if I get to look like a genius, I'm okay with with once in a
Woo!
lifetime, right?
It's better than none.
Yeah, right, right. But then to answer your question, yeah, all the rest are just basically the dividends. They're all Canadian, like the Canadian banks, the Canadian telecom. Well, just one of the Canadian telecoms, a bunch of REITs. Although the REITs have been hit really, really hard this past year with the high interest rates.
Yep,
Very, very much. Well, you've probably noticed that too in the physical real estate investing. The interest rates have gotten quite high,
crazy.
quite fast in the last 2 years.
For sure. And I've always kind of been interested in like hearing more, and I know that, you're interviewing me, and now I'm asking you questions back, but I've
That's
always kind
fine.
of been
That's the way that,
interested.
like I said, it's just we'll see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, I've always just kind of been interested in Canadian real estate, because the people that I know say that it's not like 20-year terms or 30-year terms. It's like much shorter, 5 years or less, and then the rates adjust like every 5 years, or how does it
Right.
work? Like just an overview.
Yeah, so oddly enough, I was having so at my day job, I deal with a lot of I'm a purchaser in my day job, so I deal with a lot of American suppliers, and I was literally just having this conversation yesterday with one of my suppliers in Oregon, speaking of the Pacific Northwest, and he was kind of flabbergasted at what I said because he didn't know. So basically, your mortgage can be a 20, 25, 30-year mortgage, but yeah, every 5 years, your mortgage comes up for renewal. And that is so basically the Canadian banks being the ones that make $1.2 billion every quarter in profit of 1.2 billion every quarter on average. That's
Jeez.
basically their safeguard of them saying, okay, we're not going to lose money because after every 5 years, if interest rates have gone up or down or whatever, yeah, you have to refinance your home, your mortgage, and that's just the way it works. So, and you can obviously, I moved into this house in the summer of 2021, and
Okay.
so the mortgage rates were still low. I said, "Yep, give me a fixed rate because you have a fixed or a variable rate." If I had picked a variable rate, I'd probably be homeless right now because it would have went up to like 6 or 7%, right? As opposed to the
Yeah.
I think I locked in 2.9, maybe 3.1, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
But if I had went to the variable rate over these last year and a half, my mortgage payments would have just skyrocketed. So, but yeah,
So,
now sorry, I was just gonna finish that. Now that
yeah.
I'm over 2 years in less than 3 years, I'm gonna have to refinance that again to and I'm just hoping right now that those interest rates starts coming back down in the next 3 years, hopefully.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. So, like 2026, whatever the rate is at that time, do you have the option to take another fixed rate or a variable rate? Like if it is
Yep,
high, would you opt for variable just in case, like if it comes down, then you get to have that, or would you opt for whatever the fixed is at that point?
that's a tough question because it's you're literally throwing the dice, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
say in
exactly.
2026, it is a higher, let's say it's 6.5, 7%, and you're saying, "Okay, I'll take a variable rate," and you're betting on it going back down to 5 or 6 or 4.5%. But what
Hmm.
happens if it goes up to 10%? You're literally just throwing the dice, right? Like, it's a gamble.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I really like United States real estate for that. Like being able to lock in a 30-year. We have two. The house we bought in 2020 and then the one we bought in 2021 both have 3% locked in forever, and
Yeah.
it's nice
I
not to have
wish
to
we
worry
had
about.
that here, I really do, but, um, that's also why the Canadian banks make $1.2 billion every quarter.
They're killing it.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Well, and that's also why Canadian investors love investing in the Canadian banks because they know they're gonna, uh,
Make money.
make money, and
Yeah.
they pay dividends. Here's the skill testing question for you. Do you follow, at Settling Nomads on X?
It sounds familiar. Yes, I think.
So every so often, he updates the Canadian bank dividends, and basically he's updating their yield, but because the other part of the tweet is how long they've been paying dividends for. The longest one being the Bank of Montreal. Guess what year the
Okay.
Bank of Montreal started paying a dividend? Just throw out a random any year, throw out a random wild guess.
Oh gosh. 1989.
Ooh, you're only off by 160 years, I think. 1829.
Nuh-uh.
The Bank of Montreal started paying a dividend in 1829, which I've actually literally thought about this. Is that means you had to ride your horse to the bank to get your dividend check, right?
That is so crazy.
Bank of
Wow, okay.
Bank of Nova Scotia started paying a dividend in 18 I think it was 1833, early 30s of the 1800s.
Dang. Okay, so like this is pretty set in stone. Like you know you're going to get your money.
Yeah, like o obviously, they haven't raised dividends every year for nearly 200 years, but they've been
That is so
consistently paying a
crazy.
dividend for yeah, it's like Bank of Montreal in we're almost to 2024, in 5 years' time, is coming up on a 200-year anniversary of paying a dividend. Like,
That is so nuts.
unreal, right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That makes. I mean, it makes a lot of sense why you would like feel confident in investing in dividends. Like they've been paying a dividend, they've haven't fell behind or cut it for all this time. It's like, why would they start now?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So,
That's so
and then
cool.
the other part of that little trivia knowledge, because this is kind of the very interesting part, and trust me, I've asked a lot of Americans this. Nobody has got the answer correct yet. So if you get
Okay.
the answer correct, you'll be the first.
Okay.
What year did Canada become a country?
mm. Give me a hint.
It was okay. Well, the Royal Bank started paying a dividend in 1870.
18.
So
Okay.
think of those numbers. 1870 for Royal Bank,
Okay.
1833 for Bank of Nova Scotia, 1829 for Bank of Montreal.
So 1795.
Canada became a country in 1867.
They started paying dividends before they became a country.
Yeah, like by what's the math there? Like 40 years, nearly 40 years.
Wow, I'm kind of ashamed by like my lack of Canadian knowledge. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yeah,
I don't
don't be,
know
don't be,
much.
don't be, don't be, don't be, don't be. Like I said, I've asked many Americans that same question, and the only one that got it right was Anthony at that Wallet podcast, and the reason he got it right is because he cheated and used Google.
Okay, well, I mean, I feel better about that, but dang, I better brush up on my Canadian trivia.
Yeah, so that's why we love the dividends. That's why we love investing in the Canadian banks. We just know they're rock solid. They've been paying dividends for, like I said, nearly 200 years. They're going to keep paying dividends. So, but it is unfortunate. Getting back to sort of your topic of the term and their terms on the mortgage. Yeah, I wish I could lock in for 20-25 years at 3%. Right, it would make a world of difference. It would also, like, sort of that sleep well at night you don't have to worry about in that 3 or 4 years coming up when you have to renew your mortgage, and you're like I said,
Exactly.
you're literally rolling the dice, right? So,
I know that's kind of scary. So, do you only invest in Canadian companies, or do you invest in the U.S. stock market too?
so right now I only have Canadian companies in my portfolio. Again, with the Canadian banks, I have some exposure to the US, like with TD. TD is very big in the US. You think
Yeah.
of Boston, TD Ameritrade Gardens, and Bank of Nova Scotia has some exposure, or has actually quite a bit of exposure in Latin America and South America. So I getting a little bit more. Of the Americas anyways in the portfolio just through the Canadian banks. With that said, I very high on my watch list. Actually, going back to what you said, SEHD is one that's high on my watch list. Realty Income, ticker symbol O, is high on my watch list,
Hmm.
and then just sort of the other amazing uh, American companies that you could just list so many of them that I would love to invest in. The Coca-Colas, the Pepsis, the Home
Pepsi. Yep.
Depots, the McDonald's, the Costco's, the Walmarts.
Yeah.
Like I said, that list could just go on and on and on. And
Yeah.
but I've also said so many times before, it's not Pokemon. You can't catch them all, right? You just can't. You just can't have every single stock in your portfolio. It's not possible.
Yeah, exactly. I whenever I started, like my brokerage account, I had a bunch of individual stocks. I actually the stock market truly humbled me, Dave. I'll say that. I was like I didn't have the knowledge, early on to be doing what I was doing, um, day trading, buying options, penny stocks, like the whole nine,
All
my
the
whole
mistakes.
all of them. Like, yeah, I have to. I guess I'm the type that has to do, the wrong things and learn. I can't learn from other people's
Yeah,
mistakes. I have to make my own. Um,
I can
but
relate. I can relate, man. I can relate.
and I learned like really, really quickly, like in a few months, that I don't have the knowledge, to beat the market, and I shouldn't be trying to buy individual stocks and penny stocks, and I'm not an expert at evaluating companies and their balance sheets and looking over 10Ks. Like that is not what I'm really interested in at all. So I quickly realized that individual stocks was not for me and sold those and now invest in ETFs. And I like dividends, but I feel like for me, I would only buy them like in an ETF. Like I wouldn't just start trying to buy, you know, Coca-Cola, Walmart, Waste Management, I think is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Um, and even though like I might use these companies, I might go to Walmart, I might drink Coke, people say to invest in the companies that you use or like the products that you use. And I understand that, but I think there's more to it, like, understanding the financials, the fundamentals, the technicals, like all of those types of things. Like with my job and with real estate and the things that I have going on in my life, I really don't have the time or the want to look into those things enough to be able to feel confident to know that this is the right time to buy this company. So
Right.
I just lean more towards index investing because it's more of like it's way less stressful, and it's more of like a set it and forget it. It comes out of my account every month, every week, and I don't have to put a whole ton of thought into it, and that allows me to think about other things that I need to think
Right.
about.
Yeah, and that makes 100% sense because, and you look at what's in those funds, like SCHD off the top of my head, I'm thinking it has a lot of those
Yeah,
Coca-Colas and Costco's and Walmarts and probably Pepsi and whatever. I haven't looked at what's inside of SCHD in a while, but knowing that you're actually getting a piece of those companies anyway just by um holding that fund, right? So I
exactly.
think, I don't wanna say you can't go wrong because you can always go wrong in with the stock market, but, it's definitely a very, uh, good way to go about it when you don't have the time, when like you said, you're busy with your work, you're busy with your rental properties, and yeah, if you just wanna set it and forget it, then I I can't I can't say that you're doing it wrong by just, going the index fund route, so
Yeah,
makes sense
no,
to
I,
me.
I commend people that have a bunch of individual stocks and they feel confident, they know they've done their research and they're successful. Like more power to them. It's just not me. I paid my market tuition and I'm ready to index and chill.
Right. Um Just gonna pull this up. This is the tweet, from I think you tweeted this yesterday. I started working a 9 to 5 in 2015, and after about a year, I realized I had absolutely nothing to lose. I could keep this lifestyle, working a desk job every day for the next 45 years and eventually retire at 67. Wow. Or I could
Yep.
take some risks, buy some real estate, learn how to invest my money in the stock market, and potentially retire in half the time. To me, it was a no-brainer because even if I failed as an investor, what was the worst that could happen? I could go back to working a 9 to 5 until 65. So, it's a great tweet,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, and, yeah, so I really see your mindset with that tweet too, right? It's like, "What do I have to lose?" At the end of the day,
Yeah.
if things don't work out, I still got a job.
Yeah, no, exactly. That was exactly it. It was like 2016, and I was sitting at an office job, and I was going there 5 days a week, and I didn't like my job, and I was looking around to the people around me in my office, and there was people, in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and their 60s, and everybody, and I won't say everybody, I'll take that back. I'll say a lot of people were unhappy. A lot of people were the same people that were complaining week after week about how they didn't like their job and how this sucks. And you come across people every day in the office, and how you doing, and they're like living the dream, and it's all sarcastic, and and it's just that vibe of like, I can't do this for
Right.
I was 22 at the time, so I was like, I can't do this for 45 more years. And it was, like I said, it was 20 I was 22 years old, so this was 2016ish, 27, or yeah, 2016. And I had got something in the mail that was like, congrats on investing in your 401k for your first year. As of now, you'll retire in 2064 or something. Like, it's like your retirement day is 2064 or something. And I was just thinking to myself, like, there's no way that I can sit here and do this until 2064. And like, what do I have to do to get out of doing this? And
Wow.
so that's whenever I realized, like, you have to invest, you have to buy assets that are going to appreciate over time or that are going to bring you more money. And
Yeah,
instead of,
cash flowing assets, right? Whether it's
exactly.
rental real estate or dividend income, just that those cash flowing assets.
Exactly. It was like I can either buy material items or depreciating assets that go down in value and have debt, or I can, buy things that appreciate over time. And so I just realized that if I don't make a change and do something different, like I'm going to be these same people complaining when I'm 40 and when I'm 50, I'm going to be sitting here wishing that I would have done something different. And I'm not, that's not, in my personality to kind of just sit back and, just let it be and make a 5% contribution to my 401k and just hope it all works out. Like I'm more of a let's make something happen kind of person. Like what can I really do? And
Right.
that's when I started kind of thinking outside the box, I guess.
Yeah, that's got to weigh on the going back to the mental health. That's got to weigh on the mental health when you see people that are, 10, 15, 20, 30 years older than yourself, and they're not happy at their job, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, this person's been coming to this same place for the last 25 years and they haven't been happy a single day in their life." It's like,
Yeah,
"Ooh,
that's
like how do you get through that, right?" Like,
yeah, that's really really hard. And also like I started looking around at the people's lives who were like above me, who like I was thinking like if I were to just get promoted to this or if I were to just get promoted to this, and I started looking at those people's lives, and then I started thinking like, do I really want that life? Are they happy? Yeah, it
right,
might be more money, but it also brings more stress. And, I started thinking about like the path that my company was setting up for me, and like, do I want the path for my life that they want for me? And that was, something else to think about of like, even if I get out of the situation I'm in right now with my current job and get promoted and I do make more money, is that going to solve my problems? Or is it going to just bring more problems and more headaches? So it was looking around at people that are unhappy, and then also looking around at, is it going to get better with time if I keep on the same trajectory, or is it going to still be, tough mentally,
right.
even if I move up the ladder.
Wow. Interesting, interesting. Now, I'm gonna kinda switch gears here completely because I see we're getting near the end. We're well over 50 minutes already, and I feel like I could
Yeah.
keep talking to you for so long because it's just been an amazing conversation. But I did see in one of your tweets, or maybe is it in your bio that, you're an accomplished athlete. Was it soccer or basketball that you played up
Oh
to
yeah.
college?
Yeah. I played basketball in college.
Awesome. Awesome. So, with that said, obviously you're well, athlete, so I'm guessing you're also a sports fan. We did mention
Yes.
the Erie Otters. For those that don't know, Erie Otters is a hockey team at they're in the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League. They just happen to be across Lake Erie. But living in Pittsburgh, I have to ask you again. I'm Canadian, so I'm going to ask you about hockey. How much do you love Sidney Crosby?
Love them. Actually, so the Pittsburgh Penguins, my brother is a huge fan. My pretty much my grandfather, my mom, and my brother all went to the University of Pittsburgh, and so they have a love for Pittsburgh, obviously, as I do. And when I, like I said, started working for my company that I'm with now in 2015, and then the building that we work in is directly next door to PPG Paints Arena, which is the arena where the Penguins play. And so the first 2 years that I was at my company in Pittsburgh, 2016 and 2017, they won the Stanley Cup both years. And it was insane. The parade was right, like we would leave out of work to go to the parade, and it was an absolute blast.
Yeah. Yeah. No, obviously he's an amazing player, amazing talent. I can't believe how quickly it's gone by that he's now getting towards the end of his career because he's been in the league for not quite 20 years yet, but it's getting close to that, and it's just unreal.
Yep.
Unreal.
Yeah. Some really really good hockey players. I'm not even, I like the Penguins, but I'm more of a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so that hurts because we're pretty bad.
Yeah, no, Pittsburgh obviously is a great sports city with the Penguins and the Steelers and the Pirates. And are you old enough to remember when it was called Three River? I think it was called Three River Stadium way back before this.
Yeah, yeah. My grandparents had season tickets. They were season ticket holders at Three River Stadium, and I've been to Heinz Field many times. I can't believe they changed it to Acrisure, something I can't even wrap my brain around because to me it's still Heinz Field.
I didn't realize they changed. It's so hard to keep up these days. Like, I loved it back in the day when it was called, like, it was in, like I said, Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh, Candlestick Park in San Francisco, and they had just great names back then for the arenas. And now all the
Hmm.
arenas and stadiums are just named after companies. And then after the deal is up 4 or 5 years later, another company moves in and it gets renamed. And
Exactly.
it's the only one that
Exactly.
actually the only one still sticking around is Madison Square Gardens, but that's because they're their own brand basically.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with. I tell you, like in Pittsburgh, people like absolutely nobody that I know has gotten behind Acrisure. Everybody still calls it Heinz. So that's Heinz is going to get the marketing, of that stadium forever, I think.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. I'm going to give a quick shout out here to Patrick over at investingshirts.com. A link in the description. Receive a free passive income posse. Turn that cash register around coffee mug with any purchase over 100 Canadian dollars before taxes and shipping. So you Americans, that's like $70, right? Maybe 73. It's a great deal for any American that wants to check out buyinvestingshirts.com. Use code word posse for a 5% discount on your purchase. Link in the description below. So, huge shout
Great
out to
stuff.
Patrick. And he's got tons of other great merchandise over there as well. All sorts of different coffee mugs, t-shirts like this one, the Dividends t-shirt, the Passive Income
Okay.
Posse ball cap, hoodies and toques and all sorts of great stuff over there. Bitcoin merch as well. So definitely check that out.
All right.
Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on this episode of the Passive Income Podcast. It's been an absolute blast chatting with you. It's been an incredible conversation. Uh, love
Yeah.
learning about your journey and your path and sort of what you did wrong in the beginning,
Yeah.
learning from your mistakes. But you've learned quickly because honestly, I was a lot older than you before I started learning from my mistakes. So
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me on. It's nice to meet you and get to talk to you.
awesome. Thank you so much. If you're still here and watching and listening nearly an hour later, please, please, please hit subscribe.